The alien princess feared marrying the ruthless human. Until meeting him in person, Princess Lyra sat in the high, glass-walled chamber of the Aldarian palace, staring out over the city that had been her home for 300 standard cycles. The sun shimmered across the glass spires of her people's capital, making the towers look like crystal. From this vantage point, everything seemed perfect, calm, and controlled, as if the world itself bowed to Aldarian intellect. Yet Lyra's mind was far from calm. A message from the Imperial Council lay open before her, one that would change the course of her life forever. She had been summoned to a marriage, not just any marriage, but one with a human. The humans had long been seen as unpredictable, violent, and utterly reckless by her people. Tales of their wars, their conquests, and their aggressive expansion across star systems had colored the human image in the minds of Aldarians for generations. And now, the humans demanded an alliance in the form of a marital bond between her and one of their commanders. A human commander who was described as ruthless, brilliant, and entirely untrustworthy. Lyra's advisors had spoken in hushed tones, their voices laced with warning and disdain. "Princess," her chief advisor Marin had said, "Captain Elias Kane is dangerous. He is known to crush opposition without hesitation. This is a political move, yes, but you must be careful. Your life and the stability of Aldarian depends on your caution." And in all of them, Elias Kane had appeared as a figure of power, commanding, merciless, and utterly without mercy. Her fingers traced the smooth edge of her data tablet, scrolling through images of the human territories, maps of star systems, and logs of battles he had led. Lyra tried to suppress a shiver as she read through the reports. Entire fleets had surrendered or been destroyed under his orders. Entire colonies had survived only through his calculated strategies, which had been described as brilliant but merciless. It was no wonder her people feared him. Yet even as the reports painted him as ruthless, a small part of Lyra could not ignore a subtle pattern. He always sought to protect civilians. His strategies minimized unnecessary destruction when possible. He valued lives not recklessly but through calculation. Perhaps there was a balance the humans had mastered that her people did not understand. She shook her head. She could not allow herself to think like that, not yet. First, she had to meet him, to see him in person, to assess whether the rumors and reports were accurate. Lyra's journey to the human capital was unlike anything she had experienced before. Her transport glided silently through space, leaving behind the familiar constellations of Aldarian territory and entering human-controlled regions. Even from a distance, she noticed the differences. Human colonies were sprawling, less orderly, but bustling with life. Where her people valued perfection and symmetry, humans seemed to thrive on adaptability and chaos. The cities were alive with movement, light, and sound, far different from the quiet, calculated calm of Aldarian spaces. As her ship descended into the human capital, Lyra felt a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Reports could only tell so much. The real measure of a human was in action and presence, and she would see that soon enough. The landing was smooth, but the air outside carried a tang of machinery, energy, and life, so different from Aldarian sterility. She was escorted to the human command center, a building of metal and glass that seemed to hum with energy. Guards moved efficiently, eyes sharp, but their demeanor was not threatening, it was professional. Lyra noted this quietly. Humans might be ruthless, but they were also disciplined. And then she saw him. Elias Kane. He was taller than she expected, with broad shoulders and a steady, composed stance. His eyes were sharp, observant, but not cold. They held a kind of calm authority that immediately contrasted with the stories she had heard. He did not glare, nor did he exude aggression. Instead, there was a deliberate strength in his posture, a quiet assurance that seemed to command respect without demanding fear. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect, and Lyra felt a flicker of surprise. The humans could be courteous, too. Perhaps their culture was more nuanced than she had been told. "Princess Lyra," he said, his voice calm but firm, carrying the weight of command. "Welcome. It is an honor to finally meet you in person. All reports describe you as formidable." She studied him closely, trying to detect any sign of deceit, but he was steady, transparent, and deliberate in every gesture. The formal meeting turned into a tour of the human capital. Elias guided her through government centers, military installations, and civilian districts. Everywhere she went, she saw humans working together, adapting to challenges, creating solutions with ingenuity and persistence. Where Aldarians had relied on sheer intellect and foresight, humans seemed to thrive on improvisation, cooperation, and courage under pressure. Lyra could not help but be impressed. Stories could not capture this energy, this adaptability. Humans were not simply aggressive conquerors. They were survivors, thinkers, and innovators, blending strength with creativity in ways her people rarely practiced. As they walked, they encountered a sudden commotion in one of the city's lower districts. An alien vessel, rogue and hostile, had appeared near the orbital station, threatening the city. Citizens panicked and Lyra's heart sank. This was exactly the kind of situation she had feared: violence, destruction, unpredictability. Yet Elias remained calm. His voice carried over the communication network, precise and clear, directing defense forces, coordinating evacuations, and prioritizing civilian safety. Lyra watched in awe as he led from the center, issuing commands, making split-second decisions that saved lives. His mind moved faster than the crisis itself, predicting outcomes, redirecting resources, and staying steps ahead of the enemy. And then he turned to her. "Princess, your expertise with Aldarian tech could help stabilize the station's energy core. It's unstable, and we cannot risk a catastrophic failure." She had expected hostility, perhaps distrust, but he trusted her knowledge. Together, they moved to the station, working side by side. Her hands guided the interface while his instructions ensured their actions were precise and effective. For the first time, Lyra felt a strange camaraderie with a human, someone she had been told to fear, yet whose intellect and courage matched her own. The crisis ended successfully. The alien vessel retreated, the station stabilized, and the civilians were safe. Elia's calm efficiency and ethical consideration left Lyra in silent admiration. This was no ruthless human. This was a leader, one who wielded power with responsibility, courage, and empathy. That evening, as the city recovered, Lyra found herself reflecting on the day's events. Her fear, once sharp and certain, had softened into cautious curiosity. Elias Kane was nothing like the monster the stories had painted. He was strong, intelligent, and brave, yet tempered with morality and care. Lyra realized that perhaps the humans' so-called ruthlessness was merely a misunderstanding. Perhaps they were different, yes, but not cruel. Perhaps their strength was not in domination, but in survival, adaptability, and the courage to protect those they valued. For the first time since she had received the marriage proposal, Lyra felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this union could be more than a political necessity. Perhaps there was potential for something greater, an alliance not just of territories, but of values, strength, and understanding. As she prepared for the next day's formal discussions and diplomatic meetings, Lyra felt a new determination. She would not be ruled by fear or by preconceived notions. She would see for herself, learn, and act with clarity. Humanity, she realized, was a puzzle worth understanding. And Captain Elias Kane, he was the key to that puzzle. And for the first time, she allowed herself a quiet, private thought. Maybe, just maybe, this marriage would not be the end of her freedom, but the beginning of a new understanding between two very different but equally remarkable civilizations. The sun had barely risen over the human capital when Princess Lyra was already awake, her mind racing with thoughts of the previous day. She had been warned to fear Captain Elias Kane, to expect a man ruthless in thought and action. Yet the truth she had witnessed was very different. He was strong, yes, but his strength carried a sense of responsibility. His ruthlessness seemed a label created by fear, misunderstanding, and distant reports. Lyra dressed in her formal Aldarian attire, the flowing fabric shimmering like liquid silver in the morning light. She moved with grace, as her people always did, each step measured, each motion deliberate. Yet beneath the calm exterior, her heart beat with anticipation. Today would be a deeper test, not of her courage, but of understanding. She would spend the day alongside Elias, observing how he led his people, how humans worked together under pressure, and how much truth there was in the stories she had been told. Elias was already waiting in the central hall, reviewing reports with his aides. His presence was commanding, yet approachable. He glanced up as she entered, offering a nod of greeting. "Good morning, Princess. I hope you slept well." There is no better way to understand a people than to see them in action. Humans moved with energy and purpose, each individual contributing in their own way, improvising solutions, adjusting machines, and communicating constantly. Unlike the Aldarian method of precision and perfection, humans relied on adaptability and cooperation. Mistakes were common, but learning was immediate. "This is remarkable," Lyra said quietly as she followed Elias along the crowded pathways. "Your people seem to thrive in chaos." "Structure is important, yes, but only if it allows for growth." Elias immediately accessed the city's communication network. "An unidentified vessel has entered our orbital space. It is armed and moving toward the civilian sectors. Evacuation protocols are active, but we need to respond quickly." Yet as she watched Elias, she realized his approach was precise, calculated, and humane. He was not rushing blindly into battle. He was assessing, prioritizing lives, and organizing resources. "Princess, we will need your help with the energy shields," he said. "Your understanding of Aldarian systems can stabilize our grids faster than our team alone. If you assist me, we can minimize damage and civilian risk." Together, they created a shield that could withstand the alien vessel's initial assault. The first wave of attacks hit, but the shields held. Lyra observed Elias as he issued commands calmly, redirecting defense units and civilian evacuation shuttles. His mind moved faster than the danger itself, anticipating outcomes, protecting innocents, and neutralizing threats with precision. Every action was measured, every decision calculated. Lyra could not help but feel admiration. This man, whom she had been told to fear, was saving lives, not taking them. Humans might be called ruthless, but here, she saw courage, ingenuity, and ethical reasoning at work. As the day continued, the alien vessel escalated its attack, attempting to bypass the shields and breach the city. Elias responded with a mixture of defensive strategies and clever diversions. He sent smaller, unmanned crafts to intercept the vessel, predicted the enemy's trajectory, and coordinated countermeasures with incredible efficiency. Lyra assisted where she could, her Aldarian expertise complementing the human technology. Amid the tension, Lyra noticed small but telling details about Elia's leadership. He never raised his voice unnecessarily. He acknowledged the efforts of his team, praising success and correcting errors with patience. He moved among the people calmly, instilling confidence without intimidation. He was not ruthless, he was just human, brilliant, courageous, and committed to protecting his people. Hours passed, and the city endured the full force of the alien assault. Lyra saw civilians sheltered, the injured tended to, and chaos transformed into organized action. Humans adapted in real time, learning from every move of their adversary. In every challenge, they found a solution, and Elias was the calm center that guided them. Finally, the alien vessel retreated, unable to penetrate the city's defenses. The energy grid stabilized, the shields held, and the civilians cheered in relief. Elias allowed himself a brief smile, but his attention immediately returned to coordinating recovery efforts. Lyra, however, felt something shift within her. Fear and suspicion had been replaced by understanding and respect. Humans were not ruthless, they were resilient. They were not cruel, they were principled. And Elias Kane, the man she had been told to fear above all, was the embodiment of those traits. Later, as they walked through the recovering streets, Elias spoke quietly, almost to himself. People often misunderstand us, Princess. They see our victories and assume cruelty. They do not see the calculations behind each action, the care we take to preserve what matters. Perhaps that is the nature of fear. It blinds them to truth. I am glad, Princess. It is not easy to break assumptions, especially when they are centuries old. Lyra observed how communities supported each other, how courage was not just the domain of soldiers but of everyday citizens who faced challenges with determination. By evening, she sat in a quiet courtyard, watching humans relax, laugh, and rebuild after the chaos. Elias joined her, offering a simple cup of water. "It is different from Aldarian life," he said softly. "Less perfect, perhaps, but full of spirit. Because we protect what matters, and because we learn faster than most can anticipate." She was beginning to see a future where humans and Aldarians could learn from each other, where strength was not measured by conquest alone but by wisdom, courage, and care. As night fell, Lyra returned to her quarters, her mind alive with reflection. She would write to her advisors, update the Imperial Council with her observations. But most importantly, she would continue to learn from Elias Kane. This human was no monster. He was a leader, a protector, and perhaps the key to a new era for both their peoples. She lay awake, staring at the stars above the human city. Each point of light reminded her that the galaxy was vast, full of unknowns, and yet full of potential. And somewhere among those stars, a partnership was forming, not of fear, but of mutual respect, understanding, and perhaps even admiration. For the first time, Princess Lyra allowed herself a quiet thought that she would not admit to anyone else. This human might not just be a political necessity. He might be someone she could respect, trust, and even admire. And in the vast expanse of space, where so many had failed to understand each other, that was a revelation that carried more power than any weapon, any fleet, or any empire. And so, the first true day of understanding passed, not with declarations or ceremonies, but with shared action, respect, and the recognition that humans were far more remarkable than anyone had dared to say aloud. Lyra drifted into sleep with a sense of possibility, knowing that the days ahead would test more than her intellect. They would test her ability to see truth, courage, and humanity itself. The days that followed the first attack were some of the busiest Princess Lyra had ever experienced. The humans worked tirelessly to repair the damaged infrastructure and reassure citizens who were frightened by the alien vessel's sudden assault. Lyra moved alongside them, assisting wherever her knowledge of Aldarian systems could help, while observing the human way of life. Every day revealed something new, something that both fascinated and challenged her understanding of strength and courage. Captain Elias Kane had quickly become the center of her observations, not because he demanded attention, but because it seemed to follow him naturally. His decisions were deliberate, his voice calm yet commanding, and his mind ever calculating possibilities and contingencies. Yet unlike the ruthless image painted by her people's reports, Elia's brilliance carried empathy and responsibility. He never sacrificed the innocent for efficiency, never allowed fear to cloud reason, and never let power become cruelty. One morning, as the sun rose over the human capital, Lyra found herself at the city's orbital station, a massive hub where transport vessels, defense units, and research teams converged. Reports had come in of a rogue fleet attempting to breach trade routes and disrupt supply chains. The humans' defenses were strong, but the complexity of the orbital network required precision. Lyra had been asked to consult on energy distribution, and Elias had personally invited her to join the coordination efforts. "This will be a true test," he said quietly as they entered the command center. "We cannot afford mistakes. The lives of hundreds of thousands depend on this." Watching Elias, she realized that humans did not rely solely on perfect plans. They adapted, anticipated, and acted decisively when the unexpected occurred. The rogue fleet appeared on the orbital sensors, their movements unpredictable and aggressive. Humans sprang into action, positioning interceptor drones and recalibrating orbital shields. Lyra worked closely with Elias, guiding adjustments to the energy grid that powered the shields. Their hands moved in synchrony, her Aldarian precision blending with his human adaptability. As the enemy drew closer, Lyra saw the humans' ingenuity at work. Smaller ships darted through space with daring maneuvers, intercepting attacks that larger vessels could not reach in time. Engineers rerouted power, adjusted shield frequencies, and improvised defensive algorithms on the fly. And through it all, Elias coordinated with calm authority, never raising his voice, never panicking, yet commanding respect in every word and gesture. A sudden burst from one of the rogue ships damaged a shield node. Alarms blared. Lyra froze for a moment, her instinct telling her that the system might fail. Elias, however, reacted instantly. Divert auxiliary power to Node 7. Reroute 2 drone units to intercept. I need everyone to stay calm and focused. Lyra realized that this was the difference between Aldarian intellect and human ingenuity. Where Aldarians might have relied solely on pre-calculated plans, humans adapted in real time, thinking creatively under pressure. And Elias was at the center of it all, guiding, protecting, and inspiring those around him. Once the immediate danger passed, the rogue fleet retreated, recognizing that they could not break through the coordinated defense. Humans cheered, but Elia's attention immediately turned to assessment and recovery. Lyra watched as he moved among the operators, checking their well-being, encouraging exhausted teams, and calmly explaining the next steps. His leadership was not just strategic, it was deeply human, balancing authority with compassion. Later, as they walked along the station's observation deck, Lyra spoke quietly. "Captain, I had thought humans were ruthless, but I see now that strength comes in many forms. Your people are courageous, resourceful, and surprisingly ethical." Fear makes people see what they expect, Princess. They hear about battles, victories, and losses and assume cruelty, but the truth is often different. Humans fight to survive, yes, but also to protect, to build, and to endure. Strength without purpose is nothing. True power is in using it wisely. She had been taught to value intellect above all, yet here was a man whose courage, foresight, and moral compass created strength far beyond what reports had suggested. It was as if she had been reading one version of the story, and now she was seeing the truth, the side no one bothered to tell her about. That afternoon, the two of them were summoned to a diplomatic council. Aldarian nobles in the human capital had expressed concern about the proposed marriage. They worried that Elias, despite his actions, was still a human, unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Lyra listened as their objections poured forth, polite but insistent, citing history, reputation, and perceived weakness in human morality. Lyra spoke calmly, her voice carrying the authority of her position. "I have observed Captain Kane firsthand. I have seen how he leads, how he protects his people, and how he adapts under pressure. He is not the ruthless conqueror you fear. He is a leader, a protector, and a strategist whose actions are guided by care, intelligence, and courage. I trust him, and I see no reason to doubt his character." As evening fell, Lyra returned to the city streets with Elias. The citizens were already rebuilding from the day's events, their energy unbroken by the threat they had faced. She watched a group of children helping carry supplies, a pair of engineers adjusting the alignment of a drone, and families quietly assisting neighbors. Humans were resilient not only in action but in spirit. Elias glanced at her. "You see it, don't you? It's not just about survival. Humans endure, adapt, and improve, even in the face of danger. Our strength is in our persistence, and our compassion ensures that we fight not for conquest but for each other." Courage, empathy, and the willingness to act even when the outcome is uncertain. This is remarkable. That night after the city had quieted, Lyra and Elias stood on the observation deck, looking out over the lights of the capital. The stars above reflected in her eyes, and she felt a strange sense of connection, not just to the humans but to the possibilities of what their union could mean. "Princess," Elias said softly, "I know this has been difficult. You were told to fear humans, to distrust me. But I hope you see now that humans are more than rumors, more than reputation. We are capable of greatness, of courage, and of care. I am beginning to understand your world, and perhaps myself as well." She thought of the potential of two civilizations working together, of lessons shared, strengths combined, and challenges faced as partners rather than adversaries. The day had tested her understanding, her courage, and her ability to see beyond fear. She had faced danger, uncertainty, and prejudice, not from enemies but from her own assumptions. And through it all, she had discovered a truth that would shape the rest of her life. Humans were remarkable, far more than she had been taught to believe. As the lights of the human city sparkled below, Lyra allowed herself a small, private smile. The first seeds of trust had been planted, and with them came hope. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown threats and possibilities, yet for the first time she felt ready to face it with a human by her side, someone whose courage, intellect, and compassion could match her own. And in that moment, she understood something deeper. The greatest strength of humanity was not in fearsome reputation or tales of conquest. It was in their ability to endure, to protect, to adapt, and to act with honor even when the odds seemed insurmountable. And if one human could embody all that, perhaps there was hope for a new era, not just for humans and Aldarians, but for the galaxy itself. Lyra turned to Elias once more, seeing not the commander described in stories, but a man of remarkable character. She realized that what she had feared was not him, but the unknown. And now, with knowledge, experience, and respect, the unknown no longer felt frightening. It felt full of promise. As they stood together on the observation deck, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging the union of understanding forming between two very different beings. Lyra felt a quiet determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with courage, wisdom, and the knowledge that humans, remarkable, resilient, and principled, were allies worth trusting. And perhaps in time she would learn to see not just the human strength but her own. The following morning, Princess Lyra awoke to the distant hum of human activity. The city was alive once more, citizens moving with purpose as they rebuilt, repaired, and prepared for whatever might come next. The memory of the rogue fleet attack still lingered in her mind, but instead of fear, she felt determination. She had seen humans in action, witnessed their courage, ingenuity, and moral strength, and she knew that the days ahead would demand all of those qualities and more. Captain Elias Kane met her at the command center as planned. His presence was calm, yet charged with focus. "Good morning, Princess," he said. "We have an unusual situation to assess today. Several neighboring sectors have reported unexplained disruptions in communication and trade. It may be a test of our readiness, or worse, a coordinated threat. Either way, we need to act quickly." Today, she would witness it on a larger scale. The Council of Human Commanders convened in the Central Hall, a room filled with holographic displays and real-time data feeds from various sectors. Elias moved among them, asking questions, listening to reports, and evaluating options with methodical precision. Lyra noticed something remarkable. Even in this high-pressure environment, he remained calm, patient, and encouraging. He did not dominate the discussion, but instead guided it, allowing input from every participant. An alert flashed across the main screen. A series of automated trade vessels had been intercepted by unidentified attackers in the outer sector. The attackers were not immediately hostile, but they were disrupting commerce, blocking vital supply lines, and creating uncertainty. Elias turned to Lyra. "We will need to coordinate both defense and negotiation. Your knowledge of alien technology could help us communicate with the vessels and prevent unnecessary conflict. Can you assist? The first attempt at contact with the vessels was met with silence. Lyra and Elias worked together, analyzing energy signatures and transmission patterns. Slowly, they began to understand the attackers' intentions. These were not aggressors in the traditional sense, but scavengers, intelligent, opportunistic, and wary. They were testing human defenses, assessing weaknesses, but they were also willing to negotiate. Lyra's eyes widened. Negotiation with unknown forces required a delicate balance of intellect, empathy, and courage. Elias guided her through the process, explaining the nuances of human diplomacy. We show strength to deter aggression, but we also show respect to build trust. Humans succeed when both are present. Humans had achieved what Aldarians might have attempted for weeks through patience, understanding, and practical intelligence. The success of the negotiation was celebrated briefly, but there was little time for rest. Further alerts indicated that the disturbances were spreading, and rival factions in neighboring sectors were testing boundaries, probing defenses, and seeking weaknesses. Elias immediately organized task forces, deploying teams to secure trade routes, stabilize communication networks, and maintain order. Lyra worked alongside them, guiding human engineers in stabilizing energy grids and optimizing shield frequencies. She was no longer merely observing, she was contributing, her Aldarian expertise complementing the humans' adaptability. She saw the true strength of humanity, not in individual brilliance but in collective effort. As the day progressed, the challenges escalated. One faction attempted to bypass defenses and seize control of a key orbital station. Human pilots responded with daring maneuvers, intercepting ships and rerouting cargo without causing damage. Elias coordinated the effort with calm authority, his instructions precise and humane. Lyra watched as civilians and soldiers alike followed his guidance, inspired by his competence and integrity. Later, in a quiet moment, Lyra and Elias observed the city from the observation deck. The lights below flickered as engineers and citizens continued their work, but the city itself stood resilient. Lyra could see the impact of Elias' leadership, not just in military or technological terms, but in the spirit of the people. Humans endured because they chose to, because they worked together, and because they trusted those who led them. "You have shown me much, Captain Kane," Lyra said softly. "I had feared humans, believed them ruthless and unpredictable. But I see now that their strength is something more than power or conquest. It is courage, collaboration, and the willingness to protect what matters, even at great personal risk. Humans survive and thrive not because we are perfect, but because we refuse to yield and because we value life, effort, and loyalty. Humans were remarkable not only because they could fight and defend, but because they could inspire, adapt, and lead with integrity." That evening, the council reconvened to discuss the broader implications of the day's events. Neighboring sectors were beginning to recognize the humans' competence and ethical approach. Some factions that had attempted disruption chose to withdraw, impressed by the combination of strength and fairness demonstrated by Elias and his teams. Lyra watched as Elias addressed the council. His words were calm but compelling, outlining a path for cooperation, conflict resolution, and mutual understanding. He did not boast of victories or intimidate others into compliance. Instead, he presented reasoned arguments, acknowledged concerns, and offered solutions that balanced security with fairness. It was a revelation to Lyra. Leadership, she realized, was not about fear or dominance. It was about knowledge, foresight, and the courage to act ethically under pressure. Humans were not merely survivors. They were leaders, thinkers, and protectors in their own right. After the council adjourned, Lyra and Elias walked through the city streets once more. Citizens greeted him with respect and gratitude, not fear. They had endured uncertainty, danger, and disruption, yet their trust in leadership remained intact. Lyra understood why humans could thrive in adversity. They trusted in each other and in the people who guided them. "You have taught me much," she said quietly as they paused on a bridge overlooking the central district. "Not just about humans, but about strength, courage, and leadership. I had thought strength was calculated perfection, intellect, and control. But you have shown me that true power lies in adaptability, moral courage, and the ability to inspire others. And you, Princess, have shown me that wisdom is universal. Your knowledge, insight, and perspective complement what humans can do. Together, we can achieve more than either species alone." Instead, she saw them as partners, allies, and exemplars of courage and resilience. The night was calm, and the stars reflected in the waterways below the city. Lyra thought about the future, her future with humans, with Elias, and with the broader galaxy. She knew that challenges lay ahead, that political intrigue, rival factions, and unexpected threats would test them further. But she also knew that humans, guided by integrity and courage, were capable of meeting those challenges. As she prepared for sleep, Lyra reflected on the day's lessons. Humans were not defined by stories of conquest or fear. They were defined by their persistence, adaptability, and moral strength. And Elias Kane, the human she had once been told to fear above all, embodied those qualities perfectly. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to imagine a future not limited by caution or prejudice, but guided by understanding, trust, and collaboration. She could see the potential for two civilizations to learn from each other, to grow together, and to face the galaxy's uncertainties with courage and wisdom. And as the city settled into quiet, Lyra felt a deep sense of confidence. Whatever challenges the universe held, humans could meet them and perhaps lead the way. And with Elias Kane by her side, she knew they would not face those challenges alone. The galaxy was quiet that morning, but Princess Lyra knew it was a fragile peace. The previous weeks had revealed the true nature of humanity, not in stories but in action. She had witnessed courage, ingenuity, and moral strength, all embodied in Captain Elias Kane. And now, the final challenge awaited them, a diplomatic crisis that could decide the fate of entire civilizations. Reports had arrived that a neutral star system, rich in rare minerals, had become the focus of multiple factions' interest. Both human and Aldarian trade routes passed through it, and rival alien powers were attempting to seize control. The situation threatened to escalate into open conflict, which would undo all the progress of the recent alliance. Lyra joined Elias in the central command center. The humans were already at work, analyzing sensor data, planning logistics, and preparing communications. Elias turned to her with calm authority. "Princess, this is the ultimate test. We must protect our interests, prevent bloodshed, and demonstrate that humans and Aldarians can work together to resolve crises." Human scouts and Aldarian observation units were deployed to gather information on the rival factions, positions, and intentions. Lyra coordinated the energy shields and communication systems, ensuring that all data would reach Elias and his teams in real time. She felt a sense of purpose she had never experienced before, contributing directly to a critical mission alongside humans who trusted her abilities. Within hours, the intelligence was clear. Two alien factions were attempting to blockade the system, each testing the resolve of human and Aldarian forces. They were not yet openly hostile, but they were aggressive, probing weaknesses and attempting to intimidate through presence alone. Elias called a strategic council. Commanders, analysts, and diplomats gathered in the war room. Lyra watched as he spoke, his voice steady, his words precise. "We cannot allow this system to become a battleground. Our goal is to protect civilians, secure trade routes, and maintain stability. Aggression will be met with measured response, diplomacy, and readiness." The first communication attempts were tense. Messages sent to the rival factions were met with suspicion, delays, and subtle threats. Lyra and Elias worked together, crafting responses that combined reason, ethical reasoning and demonstration of capability. It was a delicate balance, showing strength without provocation, offering cooperation without weakness. When one faction attempted to push through the blockade, human pilots and Aldarian defense units responded. The engagement was swift, precise, and controlled. No lives were lost. Every action was designed to deter aggression while minimizing damage, reflecting the strategic and ethical mindset of humans that Lyra had come to admire. Lyra observed Elia's coordinating with calm authority. He was everywhere at once, directing teams, monitoring data, and making split-second decisions. Yet there was no arrogance in his demeanor. He acknowledged contributions, encouraged innovation, and treated all participants with respect. Lyra marveled at how humans could achieve such efficiency and cohesion without losing moral grounding. Hours of tense negotiation, controlled engagements, and careful diplomacy passed. Lyra contributed her knowledge, offering insight into alien technology, communication systems, and strategic possibilities. Together, she and Elias crafted solutions that not only secured the system, but also established new trade agreements, strengthening ties between humans and Aldarians while ensuring the rival factions recognized the futility of aggression. As the situation stabilized, Lyra felt a profound sense of accomplishment. They had prevented bloodshed, secured the system, and demonstrated that humans were not merely aggressive conquerors. They were capable of intelligence, courage, and ethical leadership on a galactic scale. Later, Elias and Lyra stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, looking out over the star system they had saved from potential conflict. The planets glowed softly in the light of their sun, and Lyra felt a deep sense of wonder. The galaxy was vast, filled with danger, uncertainty, and unknown possibilities. Yet humanity's courage, adaptability, and moral strength offered hope that peace and progress could endure. "You have shown me much, Captain," Lyra said quietly. "Not just about humans, but about strength, leadership, and responsibility. I had feared your people, believed them ruthless. But I see now that your greatest power is in courage, wisdom, and the choices you make to protect life. Together, humans and Aldarians can achieve more than either alone, and I am grateful to have learned from you as well." Humans were resilient, intelligent, and principled, and she now understood why they could thrive even in the harshest conditions. The culmination of their efforts came during a council of interstellar leaders, where Lyra and Elias presented their results. The rival factions were compelled to acknowledge the humans' strategic capability and ethical approach. Aldarians, humans, and other allied species recognized that collaboration, courage, and respect could prevent conflict and foster growth. Lyra spoke before the assembly, her voice clear and confident. "The galaxy is vast and filled with challenges, but it is also full of potential. Strength is not in domination, but in courage, intelligence, and the choices we make to protect what we value. Today, humans have shown that they are capable of leadership, collaboration, and ethical action. Let us learn from each other and build a future where peace and progress are possible for all." Together, they had not only prevented disaster, but had elevated humanity's reputation throughout the galaxy. Later that evening, Lyra and Elias walked through the city streets. Citizens greeted them with warmth, gratitude, and genuine respect. Lyra observed children playing, engineers repairing equipment, and families interacting peacefully. Humans had endured adversity, yet their spirit remained unbroken. Their strength was not in fear or aggression, but in resilience, collaboration, and integrity. "You have taught me much, Captain Kane," Lyra said softly. "I feared humans once. Now I see that your greatest power lies in courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to act with honor even when the outcome is uncertain. And you, Princess, have shown me that wisdom is universal. Knowledge, understanding, and perspective are gifts that can guide strength into action. Together, we can face any challenge and perhaps even inspire others to do the same." It was not only a political marriage, but a symbol of trust, respect, and collaboration between two civilizations. The ceremony took place on the observation deck of the orbital station, with representatives from humans, Aldarians, and allied species in attendance. Lyra walked forward, her gown shimmering in the soft starlight. Elias stood waiting, composed and dignified, yet there was a warmth in his eyes that spoke of respect, partnership, and mutual admiration. They exchanged vows, not only as a promise of union, but as a commitment to shared values, cooperation, and courage. The moment marked more than a personal milestone. It signified a new era. Humans were no longer feared as ruthless conquerors. They were respected as leaders, protectors, and exemplars of courage and moral strength. The galaxy had witnessed what Lyra had learned firsthand. Humans could inspire, endure, and lead with integrity. As the ceremony concluded, Lyra and Elias looked out over the stars together. The galaxy was vast, filled with uncertainty and danger, but also with possibility. Together they would face whatever came next, guided by courage, wisdom, and the belief that humanity's greatest power lay not in force alone, but in the choices they made, the lives they protected, and the alliances they built. For Princess Lyra, the journey had transformed fear into understanding, prejudice into admiration, and uncertainty into hope. And for Elias Kane, the experience reaffirmed the truth he had always known. Humans could endure, adapt, and inspire, not through fear, but through courage, ingenuity, and the pursuit of what was right. In the quiet of the evening, as the stars shimmered above and the city thrummed with life below, Lyra felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The galaxy was vast and complex, but the partnership between humans and Aldarians, embodied in their union, was a beacon of what could be achieved when strength, wisdom, and courage worked together. And as she took Elia's hand, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them not alone, but together, as equals, partners, and allies. The galaxy could see the truth now. Humanity was remarkable, and the story of the ruthless human had been rewritten, not by tales but by actions, by courage, wisdom, and the power of doing what was right.